We shouldn't be disarming unilaterally as our enemies grow more sophisticated and aggressive.
There is no more contentious issue in Washington at the moment than the tussle over the Patriot and/or Freedom Act, how much information the government can and should keep on its citizens, and the conversation one senator has raised over his stand and the stand fast approach to it all. Our guest is that senator, also author of the new book, Taking a Stand, Moving Beyond Partisan Politics to Unite America, which is what his stated claim has always been. Let's welcome Senator Rand Paul to the Hardline. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Senator, what about those who immediately say right now as we talk today that America is less safe today than it was yesterday, and you know they're pointing the finger at you?
You know, I think it's quite the opposite. I think you can get more information with traditional warrants. If you put a person's name on the warrant, you can get much more information than you can get from superficially looking at metadata. The other thing is it comports with the Constitution. The Constitution in the Fourth Amendment says that you have to individualize the warrant. So I'm all for getting more information on terrorists. I just want to get less information on law-abiding American citizens.
Then what are the opponents to you missing in all this? Because as you properly point out, the Fourth Amendment is involved here, and it would seem that anybody who's a lawmaker would seem to know that that is one of the most sacrosanct things in America, and that needs to be protected first and foremost.
Yes, it's what John Adams said. John Adams said that the spark that led to our war for independence was basically the defense against generalized warrants, and that's where the Fourth Amendment came about. We were upset that the British soldiers were writing their own warrants, and that they were just coming into Americans' houses without a name a warrant that had their name on it. And so I think this is really important. I mean, Justice Brandeis once said that the right to be left alone is the most cherished of rights. I think a lot of Americans still agree with that.
What is it, though, about this issue that other people can't understand when we look at national security? Because you will hear those people that say, we've got to have this information. The NSA has got to dig deep into Americans. Otherwise, there's a chance, just an outside chance, that one American could be killed by a terrorist, and that would be one American too many.
You know, I think it's fear, but I think it's also a misunderstanding that you can get records with the Fourth Amendment. In the debate last night, some of the other senators were saying, oh, we need the Patriot Act in order to get records like on the Boston bomber, even after the bombing. And my response was, that's absurd. After the bombing, of course, any judge in the land would have said there's probable cause to look at the bomber's records. But I think even beforehand, we didn't do a good enough job in the sense that the Russians tipped us off to him. We knew about him. We weren't tracking his movements close enough to know that he went back to Chechnya and was radicalized. I'm for hiring more FBI agents. I'm for doing more record searches, but just put the name on the warrant. I just don't want them to search all American records or everybody in Boston. But if I'm the judge and you give me the Sonarif boy and tell me the Russians have tipped us off, I'm a yes. If I'm the judge, I'm a yes on looking at his computer, looking at his records, looking at his email. But once you've made it particular and individualized that there is suspicion.
What about your fellow Republicans? Because quite frankly, there's dozens of them now who have come after you, and they are now attacking you for this. And many people even believe that you have now moved outside of what the GOP would normally stand for, and you're becoming something of a rogue again.
Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting thing is I've traveled a lot in the last year, but really in the last week I've been in 5 different states. And we have people turning out by the hundreds who agree with me that they don't want the president looking at their phone records. They don't trust the president. This is the president who has used the IRS against Tea Party groups, has used the IRS against religious groups, has used the IRS to invade our religious liberty, and I frankly don't trust the president with our phone records. And so I think a lot of Republicans are with me. I don't think it's outside the mainstream. In D.C., a lot of the politicians are out of step. This is why we ought to have term limits, frankly, because they stay so long that they forget about what people think at home.
In the Washington Post today, Jennifer Rubin brought up a feeling that many people have. They say that by taking this step and by what you did, you have disqualified yourself from the presidency, that there is no chance now that Rand Paul could possibly get elected because of this stand. How do you respond?
I think it's kind of the opposite. People inside the Beltway, you know, they need to leave sometimes. They need to leave Washington and visit America, because the thing is that if you ask Americans under the age of 40, do you think the government's gone too far in collecting your records? 83% of young people think the government's gone too far in collecting our records indiscriminately. even if you ask just Republicans, well over 50% of Republicans think the government's gone too far in collecting our records. But, regardless of whether it was popular or not, to me it is about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the oath I take to defend the Constitution. And I would do it even if it were unpopular. But I frankly think they have been in Washington so long, they have no idea what the rest of America's like.
I've got about a minute left, and let me ask you about a statement you made. I want to see if it was correct, where you said that the opponents, your opponents, secretly want there to be an attack on the United States so they can blame it on me, meaning you. Did you say that, and do you still stand by that?
I think in the heat of the battle, sometimes hyperbole can get the better of us, and I think that's an example of it. What I was trying to say, and I think could be better said, is that I think that sometimes people try to use fear to get us to give up our liberty in exchange for, I think, a false sense of security. But I think it was a mistake for me to try to question others' motives, and so in the passion of the moment, I think maybe hyperbole got its way with me.
I got about 20 seconds left here, Senator. Is it possible that you and Mitch McConnell will not be exchanging Christmas cards this year?
We have a pretty good relationship. We don't get along, not that we don't get along. We don't agree on everything, and but I think that's true of Republicans in general. We don't have to agree on every issue, but there are a lot of fundamentals of things about government we do. We are, I think, personal friends and do fine. We don't agree on everything, and I think this shows that I'm willing to stand up and make my point known, but I try not to hold any kind of personal grudge.
And let's just hope maybe that American politics learns not to hold a grudge. I don't know where we'd be if everybody actually understood that. The book, once again, is called Taking a Stand, Moving Beyond Partisan Politics to Unite America. Senator Rand Paul is the author, and he joins us. Thank you so much, Senator. We'll speak again.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, and stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes in news, The Hard Line, continues.